How hardcore can we expect the game to be?
Oh man, that is a very good question. Slightly more complex answer. Very fucking hardcore for sure. We can't overstate that enough. I mean, this game, if you approach it like a conventional shooter and you shoot everything in the environment, you're going to get your ass handed to you. It's literally the worst thing you can do in like a super heavy combat environment. Like, it's just not a good idea. You're giving away your position. You're lowering the amount of resources you have to actually complete your objective. You're endangering your squad mates. Insert reason here. And obviously, I would argue probably most shooters highly encourage as much of an action-packed experience as possible from like the Rambo power fantasy end of things. And that's fucking awesome. We love those games too. We just didn't want that for the core scab experience. That was just, it didn't make sense for us from like a creative standpoint. And there's plenty of games that offer that. So yes, it's gonna be hardcore as fuck. There are different elements that we're exploring and prototyping and might be in like updates at a later time that would be like, let's say, slightly more survival-esque. But in terms of that core user experience, like super kinetic, high octane, high threat, low survival rate, yeah, it's gonna be hardcore as fuck.
Yeah, like everything that's developed goes through that lens of it, the world's there despite you, not for you, including like a bunch of meta elements. But yeah, like it's pretty hardcore. Actually, every time we kind of drift towards something that is more conventional or more user friendly, we usually end up having a discussion like, why is this in the game? Not to the point of like, trying to make just nothing but anxiety and doom. But yeah, we're pretty rigid on, is this really necessary, or is this just a gamey thing we think the game needs? So it's pretty hardcore.
How will the water be handled in the release?
It's so
Dun,
funny
dun, dun.
that you
Go
asked
for it,
that
Jeff.
right after the hardcore question.
It felt appropriate. What can I say?
So I'll start off, like, we got a lot of really good feedback about the water system from the beta. And to quickly summarize what it is and what the feedback was, is the water real time degrades even if you're not playing. To take even a further step back, your hub world, which we call the innards, requires water to survive and thrive and to attract new vendors and all sorts of things that would take the whole rest of this conversation if I kept going. So that's a key part of the meta in terms of making sure that you have enough water and you sustain the water for your innards. We got feedback that it was pretty brutal, and there actually some concern about, like, what if I can't play for TBD period of time. The short answer to that is that system remains, but what we have done based on the beta is make it crystal clear what is happening and why. We've made it easier to interact with gaining water and sustaining water, and we've also tuned, and we'll probably continue to tune, like the initial amount of water, how much water is available, how much water you can store, and we'll keep looking at that. But again, right on the coattails of the hardcore question, like this game isn't just about putting bullets down range and coming back with some killer loot. It's about survival, and if you don't take care of your home, it will fall apart and wither. So that is a big kind of central tenet of the game.
Definitely, and I've got quite a bit to add to that. So looking at it from a couple different levels, it really just came down to what we wanted that core user fantasy to be. And even a lot of the feedback that we got from a lot of my friends in the veteran community was like that there had to be legitimate stakes. And there's of course a conventional like gear fear stakes of like, this is a cool gun, it's a cool element X and Y, right? But at the heart of it, we really wanted it to feel like this pressure cooker, and not in the context of it being like we want people to log in every day or any other stupid bullshit like that. Like, play the game at your leisure, and it's not going to like delete your characters. All of your XP is still there. Mm-hmm. Like if you prestige a few times, that's all there. Your stash is fucked because that particular like level of like the innards is fucking gone. Like, but he's dead. They moved on to another location, right? And so there are definitely catastrophic losses there. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, since beta, you also keep a larger subset of your credits if you get water death. So that's another way we kind of eased the burden, so you can bootstrap your stuff a little bit better after water death if it happens to you.
Exactly. And there's one other like super important element here, and I think this actually comes down to like core philosophy. This design idea, if I'm being really, really honest, this was one of those things where us not having a publisher gave us the creative freedom to kind of try new shit. And some of it is probably going to be polarizing in a lot of different ways. And there's a lot of other cool and interesting mechanics that we think are cool. You guys can try them out. And obviously we're flexible on a lot of these things, but this was one of those things where it was like, we don't get a chance to actually try any of these things. If you're coming in like a AAA environment, it's basically like, okay, stamp, press, like pour the iron in, this game comes out, right? And this was one of those things that I think is in some ways, it's definitely going to be challenging. But by the same token, I'll give like the other piece of that, which is, I mean, I stand by our design director. I stand by Jeff's idea. I think this is cool. I think the idea of it being like, whether it was a water component or whether the impetus for a wipe was like a nuclear bomb drop, or whether it's, you know, like that impending eclipse, whatever those components are, we always wanted the player to feel like they're behind the eight ball. Because when you have a game that basically you have like, progression's permanent, right? And that's fucking fine, and that's totally cool. Except that when you hit that peak, like I found like the hardcore experiences that I'm used to, when you hit that cap of like, okay, I have power armor, I have fucking nuclear bomb launcher, whatever these components are, you have like a huge inventory of every single play style that you want, then it's usually like you're at the top of the mountain, right? And we really wanted it to be like a much more organic experience where you always feel like, fuck, man, like crazy shit could happen. By that same token, we also want to be respectful of just any situation that anybody has, right? So the simplest solution, and obviously we're going to tune this through updates, is there are creative ways, shall we say, to avoid the what if I'm sick, what if I have to work during this time scenario. A lot of that has to do with expanded water storage, that being one avenue. There's some other very obvious avenues that I'm sure the community is going to be able to explore probably on day one. And I will also preface this with a lot of our community, a lot of you guys, when you played the closed beta, were hitting damn near water cap in one day, instantly. And that was like 30 days, which was the cap within the beta. That cap's going to be expanded. And we can play with the levers to make sure that it's like a fair experience across the board. And if you build something like really vibrant, then like that's fucking cool. And you basically have it indefinitely. And then if you came back to the game, you'd still have your high level characters and you'd easily be able to rank up. So I think all things considered, I think it's a pretty ballsy mechanic. It is tantamount in some ways to like fucking Animal Crossing, when like all the weeds show up and boot up Animal Crossing from like old school GameCube and you're just like, holy crap, my entire map is covered in weeds. But by the same token, I don't know, it's not often in life you get to kind of push the boundaries like that, and I think it's cool. And there's a lot of other terrible things you can do. You have cyborgs run into the fucking, you know, innards and kill every single person that you fought to protect. I mean, maybe in the future, but for now, this seemed like the least painful, but also a way of keeping that like rat in a maze feel. And for me personally, my favorite moments are like after a wipe in like Tarkov, like that fucking initial like stage of like everybody's using like random shit that they find. Like you have like one L can, or you have like a shitty SKS, like, or you have an AK with no dust cover, and everybody's like fighting to survive. That's the shit. When everybody's rocking quad nods, like it's a very, very different game, and it's still cool, but it's not the same animal. So I don't know. That's just where I'm coming from on that.
I think another thing to keep in mind is it's a cooperative game. And if you want to play by yourself, that's awesome. But hypothetically, let's say my innards just completely dehydrates and Miles is capped and has all the vendors and everything. If I go into his game, into his innards, I'll be able to use that like lush environment with my credits to get stuff to help bootstrap myself back up so the community can help each other. It's not like you're completely stranded and alone. And I actually find that really refreshing when we're playing some of our play tests. Like I know Ludo will have like a much more advanced innards than mine. And I'm like, oh man, you have this vendor unlocked. I'm going to buy some stuff while I'm here. And it goes into my stash and I keep it when I log off from his innards. And that's another cool thing to remember in terms of bootstrapping yourself if it does happen.
What is the compatibility between people that either play solo or with their friends and when they want to play together? So it kind of answers directly from when you're saying that if you were to play with someone that plays a lot, you're able to go into their innards and they have a lot more than you and you're able to access that and stuff. So if you would go into further detail of how that would go.
So whoever the host is, that's the innards that you're in. So if the host has everybody unlocked and has just Shangri-La, everybody who joins his or her game is going to have access to all of those items. With a big caveat, you still have your own personal stash of credits and inventory. The faction ratings are still your own. Like if Yoruska hates your guts, they're still going to hate your guts if you're in someone else's innards. So the vendors might not be selling you everything, even if they have everything available for everybody else. So that's something that you're responsible for, regardless of which innards you're in. And there's no gating. There's no like if Miles is prestige 20 times and I'm brand new, we're not going to say no or force Miles to be a lower level. We can do that kind of stuff. It's because it's cooperative, right? Like you're not going to have someone just railroad you because it's not competitive. It's a cooperative shooter. But that's the quick version. Is all of the innards elements are the host and his or her guests experience those, but your status in terms of your XP, your faction ratings, and your inventory are preserved regardless of whose innards you're exploring.
Will the game offer Linux support?
So we're launching with a Windows executable. I've actually, when I was trying to get it to run on my Steam Deck, used various Protons and found that I could run it with Proton Experimental. I want to be really clear. It's not like 60 hertz on a Steam Deck running around, but you can use a Proton to get it launched, but it's not native out of the box at early access with Linux.
How did you use the beta to better the game in order to get into the early access status?
Da-da-da.
Jeff.
Oh man, I almost called up my notes, which are on the screen recording. So I stopped myself just before I went, I almost ruined the recording. We poured through the entire disc. First, we poured through the entire Discord and wrote down a bunch of comments, both in terms of just what people were saying to each other and the bug reporting channels. We also did a survey, which in my mind, in my experience, had a really high engagement, which is just fancy pants developer speak for how many people actually filled the thing out. We broke that down into major categories of feedback. Main feedback that we got this isn't exclusive, but was in the realm of AI and artificial intelligence, meta and lore, player navigation, and I think water was the fourth one, which was tied into meta and lore, which then we just focused on what are the specific concerns and what are the needs that the players have. So like some of them, honestly, we got really lucky. There were bugs that were already fixed, but like let's take the player navigation. That was an easier one. It looks like there's a bunch of mantle jank that was broken. Sometimes there was a conflict in our ability system where if you went into ADS and then you got hit, it would think you're still in ADS, so you'd be going slower than you're supposed to. We just had to figure out what was going on there. Creatively, there was a bunch of tuning. I think the biggest creative heavy lifting that we did since the beta was a lot of really good quality AI work. And we will still keep exploring that. I don't think we're done. I don't know if we'll ever be done, Miles. But we definitely improved how they respond. Like one of the biggest complaints that rang in my mind, I don't remember who said this literally, but I want to give him or her credit. But pop off one shot from 10 million miles away, and then some soldier who happens to be getting their face chewed off by cyborgs all of a sudden decides, that old man is my highest threat. We're fixing those kind of target acquisition issues. We're making the awareness and their state of awareness more clear so that you know what's going on in the game, although we're still having the discussions on where that should live. Little sneak peek, but it's pretty solid now. But those are the buckets. That's kind of how we reacted to it, is we broke it into individual buckets. And I also found what I'm going to call one-offs of things that I'm like, yeah, this is really important to me and this person's right. I actually engaged with a couple of people on the forum saying, like, tell me more about this because I want to fix this right now. And I fixed a couple of them real time during the beta, because I would have the editor open and then I'd look and I'd be like, oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Let me fix that right now. I don't know if you want to add more, Miles, but it was. Yeah.
That's how it went down. The drone meme. The drone meme is legendary. Whoever made that.
Drone parts.
The work of genius. I fucking loved it. The loot table has been adjusted for that, so all gravy. But still, god damn it! We gotta post that somewhere because it's brilliant.
Oh, I love that meme. You want to look behind the scenes. So loot tables at a high level, what happens is when something dies or you open a crate, there's a list of things with weights, and it basically rolls dice.
Don't do it, Jeff. Don't do it. They'll
Okay.
figure it out. It'll be fine. And
All right.
we're going to be adjusting
Gonna
it
shut me
forever.
up.
So, no.
Figure it out. Figure it out.
Is there an expected duration for the early access? Is there a timeline for when new content is going to drop, or is it all up in the air?
Short answer is yes and no. The longer answer is we used the primary jumping off points for the video that we posted yesterday, which was the early access announced video, to show the maps that we're going to be including. And then in terms of pushing a lot of the mechanics, full disclaimer, the skill trees are still very much work in progress. There are other systems that are in the game that we're definitely teasing out and, trying to push as far as we can so that the characters can do a lot of the really cool shit that we really want them to do, right? So, like, Gunhead is a perfect example. Right now we have Gunhead in a prototype stage, but we want to push that way further than where he currently is. And so it's just figuring out, like, how to, like, ride that line and balance it. There is no concrete window. We're using the maps as kind of like major updates with whatever we can, but we also have to factor that in with all the feedback we're going to be getting from you guys in the coming weeks. So it's going to be just figuring out robbing for Peter to pay Paul, and just where we're spending our time. In case in point, if there's like a major issue, we're going to spend our time on that major issue and try to get that knocked out. So that you guys have like a kick-ass and ideally as stable as a flying tank can be gaming experience. So yeah, that's gonna be the crux of it for sure. So yeah, I mean, we're using the maps as the baseline. I can simply say the maps are gonna be fucking sick, and we're using those as kind of like our bar for introducing new content.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers it. I don't know.
There's what we want to do, what we have to do, and what the players are demanding. And right now we only really know one, maybe two of the three of those. So we'll figure it out.
Is there going to be anti-cheat in the game?
I think we do have some baseline anti-cheat.
I can tell you we're not installing any of those like hyper aggressive needs access to the root of your OS kind of anti-cheat systems that let people spy on your hardware. Like nothing like that will get installed. That's for sure.
How do the characters differ from each other, whether it be playstyle, personality, weapons?
I can answer on personality.
Yeah, start there.
We worked with some fucking incredible voice actors, a lot of them from like an anime background or like a film background. Jason was able to work with a lot of really, really talented, amazing people, and they added a ton of flair to the characters. They'll respond to us and be like, in a match as you're playing, right? And it's very clear like which shall we say end of the spectrum that they're on in terms of personality and like their belief structure, and whether they're nervous or whether they're confident or whether they're a psychopath. And I think it was rad working with them. They were fucking incredible. Jason did a great job hooking them up, and Sinclair, freaking beast mode. He was doing all the audio engineering behind the scenes. So that's on the personality side. I'm definitely super happy with what the team was able to do with basically no resources and no time.
Miles already talked about like the skill progression trees. Like cards on the table, there's so much love poured into the game that the Rolls Royce design, as I call it, for the skill trees, which gives all of the characters insanely unique skills, are still works in progress and stuff we want to achieve. The Gunhead example that Miles gave is a perfect example. What early access will have is distinction within carry capacity, weapon use, rig use, speed, silhouette, and health. And that will continue to be expanded upon. It's not like the current skill progression trees and the characters are milquetoast or anything like that. It's just there's a lot of opportunity there we're going to keep exploring to really give them some really cool and unique behaviors as we keep making the game. And again, I'll call back to the Gunhead. The fact that it'll be an autonomous gun with all sorts of surprises I won't reveal yet as we land that feature. It's not just going to be confined to that one character in terms of uniqueness of skill set.
Is the game going to be released on console?
Only on Game Boy Advance.
Oh, no. Fuck that. No, God in heaven. No. Short answer, we would love to. Those conversations are ongoing. And if the PC SKU is super successful, we would love to do that. That's the most honest answer on that front. We're currently working on EOS installation that would allow cross-play opportunities. We'd love to bring it to console. It's going to be fucking cool. We'll see how everything goes, and hopefully there's a lot of support for the game.
Is there going to be an art book made for the Forever Winter?
Yes. Is the short answer. The longer answer is we're super excited to have some really, really, really kick-ass updates on that front. It's going to be fucking amazing. Super excited about it. We'll have more details very soon.
It totally will not feature any of my art.
Jeff, I'm gonna, just because you fucking said that, dude, I'm gonna make sure that your diagrams for like how squads work and where the awareness cones are, like I'm gonna make sure that that's in there just for you, man. I'll be like, this is the process.
I hope you like right angles and circles of various colors.
What is your guys' favorite snack at Fun Dog?
What is your favorite snack? We gotta answer that. We gotta answer that one.
Jesus Christ. I legitimately don't know these days. I really like those Trader Joe's like sour gummies. The fucking like sour Swedish fish. They're very good.
Oh,
they're very bad
fish
for you, but they're very good.
There is a Korean corn snack called, I'm gonna mangle the word. My wife's Korean. I'll look it up. It's really good. It's better than just like those disgusting styrofoam circular corn discs.
Like, are we still gonna do a beta? Right now, we really, I mean, the honest conversation at the war table, right, was we have two avenues. Like, one, I absolutely want to do that because I think it'll actually help just for people to really understand very specifically what this game is. But then on the flip side, we're balancing that between that and performance. It's really just a toss-up. And right now, performance is going to win the argument over the demo.
Yeah, for sure.
But miracles do happen. So if we are, by some grace of God, able to pull that off, then sure, why not?
I'm going to quote you, Madison. I mean, in terms of honesty and just that's how we roll. We're not the engineers. We're biasing making EA better than like splitting the difference to two mediocre SKUs, and we'll see what happens.
That's the roll of the dice.